Welcome back to Truth Decoded, where we pull apart the stories history left unfinished. Today, we're diving into one of the ocean's most enduring mysteries. It is late afternoon in 1945. 5 US Navy Avenger torpedo bombers lift off from Fort Lauderdale on a routine training run. 14 men, clear skies, familiar waters, radio contact fractures, then silence. Then the rescue plane sent after them vanishes too. What was quietly left out of the report? At 3:40 in the afternoon on December 5th, 1945, roughly 90 minutes into what should have been a 3-hour triangular training run, Lieutenant Charles Taylor's voice crackled across the frequency with a sentence that should have ended the mystery right there. "Both my compasses are out," he told the pilot who intercepted his transmission, "and I am over land, but it is broken. I am sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down and I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale." He was not in the Keys. Taylor was mistaken about his position. In reality, the flight was more than 200 miles north of where he believed they were. The control tower knew this. Other pilots in the air knew this. One trainee was overheard on a transmission saying, "If we would just fly west, we would get home." He was right. Taylor refused. That is not a supernatural event. That is a cascade of navigational confusion, compounded by a malfunctioning compass, an unfamiliar coastline, and a flight leader who, despite being offered a rescue escort, waved it off, convinced he already knew where he was. The Navy's own investigation concluded that Taylor had mistaken islands for the Florida Keys after his compasses stopped working, leading the flight northeast over open sea. The report was later amended to read "cause unknown," not because the evidence was ambiguous, but to avoid formally blaming Taylor for the loss of 5 aircraft and 14 men. The official record was clear. What happened to Flight 19 had a shape, a timeline, and a human explanation. The silence afterward was not the ocean's doing, it was editorial. Then there is the Rescue Mariner, the plane the legend treats as a second supernatural vanishing. The PBM Mariner had a reputation for being notoriously accident-prone. Airmen had nicknamed it the flying gas tank for its tendency to explode. The Mariner that launched from Naval Air Station Banana River to search for the missing Avengers probably caught fire in flight. Radar and a visual sighting of a flaming aircraft falling from the sky indicated a sudden catastrophic end. Witnesses on a ship in the area reported seeing an explosion at the right time and in the right place. This was not a second mystery layered onto the first. It was a mechanically fragile aircraft, operating at night, over open water, on a fuel system with a documented history of vapor accumulation. The evidence was there. It simply required someone to look for it. Nobody looked, not publicly, not for nearly 2 decades. The disappearance of Flight 19 was considered a somewhat mysterious tragedy until 1964, when author Vincent Gaddis published an article about the doomed flight in the science fiction magazine Argosy. In the article, Gaddis argued the planes had disappeared in a region with an unusually high number of air and water accidents, and coined the term Bermuda Triangle. 10 years later, Charles Berlitz turned that coinage into a global phenomenon. His 1974 book became one of the biggest sellers of the decade, eventually reaching some 20 million copies across 30 languages. What Berlitz built, though, was not a case, it was a selection. No one had actually fact-checked the claims of boats and planes going missing in the first place, and when researcher Larry Kusher did, a few years later, he discovered there was no mystery to solve. The disappearances were either reporting mistakes or outright fabrications. One ore carrier Berlitz described as lost without trace 3 days out of an Atlantic port had in fact sunk 3 days out of a port with the same name, in the Pacific Ocean. Another case Berlitz presented as a mystery, the disappearance of around-the-world yachtsman Donald Crowhurst, had clear evidence pointing to its cause, which Berlitz simply did not report. A few of the vessels listed as missing were actually found safe, crews intact, delayed, out of radio contact, or prematurely reported missing. In some cases, there was no record of the ships and planes at all. They never existed outside a writer's imagination. Kusher went over accident and weather reports, reviewed news articles, and contacted the Coast Guard, the Air Force, and Lloyd's of London. What he found was not a pattern of disappearances. It was a pattern of omissions. Storms not mentioned, locations quietly shifted, explanations buried in the public record and simply not included. The legend was not discovered. It was assembled, piece by piece, from cases that only looked mysterious once you removed everything that explained them. Which raises the question that the legend's architects never wanted asked. If every case that built the triangle's reputation collapses the moment you check the original source, is there actually something about that stretch of ocean, something measurable, something real, that makes it more dangerous than anywhere else? The answer exists, and it is more deflating than anything Berlitz ever wrote. When Kusha pulled the original records and found that Berlitz had simply removed the explanations, did that surprise you, or did you already suspect the legend was built on a mission? Drop your answer in the comments below, because the real question isn't what sank those ships, it's why the myth survived long after the evidence didn't. Once Kusha published his findings and the architecture of the legend was fully exposed, the question the legend had always depended on, is this place genuinely dangerous? Finally had an institutional answer, and it came not from a skeptic with an agenda, but from the one group whose entire financial survival depends on getting the answer right. Lloyd's of London has been pricing maritime risk since the late 17th century. Their underwriters built their business on a single principle: charge more for danger. Routes through storm corridors cost more. War zones cost more. Shallow reef approaches cost more. The methodology is ruthless and precise because a wrong assessment doesn't produce a bad headline. It produces a catastrophic loss. When a British television documentary team asked Lloyd's in the early 1990s whether an unusually large number of ships had sunk in the Bermuda Triangle, Lloyd's reviewed its records and reached a conclusion that should have ended the conversation permanently. They determined that large numbers of ships had not sunk there. They do not charge higher premiums for vessels crossing it. The Triangle, by Lloyd's actuarial reckoning, carries the same risk profile as any comparable stretch of open Atlantic. The silence that followed that finding, in the popular press, in the paperback market, in the television documentaries that kept airing, is deafening. The US Coast Guard arrived at the same place through a different door. Their official position, drawn from decades of incident records, is that the number of casualties in the Triangle does not exceed what would be expected, given the volume of maritime and air traffic crossing it. Not slightly elevated, not ambiguously higher, consistent with expectation. The World Wildlife Fund's analysis of the world's 10 most dangerous shipping lanes placed the Bermuda Triangle nowhere on the list. The pattern repeats with unsettling precision. Every institution that examines the raw numbers reaches the same answer, and every popular account ignores it. What the numbers do confirm is that the region has real, physical characteristics that generate accidents, the same ones that generate accidents everywhere else, concentrated by geography. The Gulf Stream runs directly through the Triangle, one of the fastest ocean currents on Earth, capable of dispersing wreckage and bodies within hours of a sinking. When investigators found no debris, that absence was treated as supernatural. It was hydrological. The area sits at the convergence of Atlantic weather systems and Caribbean hurricane corridors, producing sudden, violent squalls that can overwhelm small aircraft and light vessels with almost no warning. And in the era before satellite weather forecasting, with genuinely no warning at all. Add to this the sheer volume of traffic. Thousands of ships and aircraft cross this stretch of ocean routinely, which means statistically, more incidents will occur there simply because more vessels are present. When researchers adjusted disappearance rates for traffic volume, the Triangle's numbers fell below the global average. Consider what happened in October 2015 to the cargo ship El Faro. 33 crew members died when the vessel sank in the Bahamas during Hurricane Joaquin. The cause was established clearly. A captain who had access to updated storm forecasts and sailed into the hurricane's path anyway, combined with mechanical issues and a ship that was not equipped for the conditions it encountered. No debris mystery. No radio silence without explanation. No legend. El Faro sank outside the Triangle's boundaries, so no one called it supernatural. The same forces, weather, human error, the unforgiving physics of a vessel in extreme seas, explain every case the Triangle's architects built their reputation on. The only difference is that those cases happened inside an imaginary boundary that a science fiction magazine drew in 1964. That is the mechanism, fully assembled. The Triangle was never a place with unusual properties. It was a frame, a way of grouping unrelated incidents so that the explanations, which existed in every case, could be cropped out of the picture. What Berlitz built, and what millions of readers accepted, was not evidence of the unknown. It was evidence of what happens when a mission is mistaken for mystery. The ocean did not take those planes and ships into some unexplained void. The void was editorial. And once you see that, the triangle doesn't just lose its power, it loses its geography entirely. Drop a comment. Do you think the Bermuda Triangle is real or just myth? Subscribe for more unresolved mysteries.